I'm 3Monster51, and these are my Week 10 NFL predictions. Last week I went 8-6, and I am now 85, 49, and 1 on the season. Bengals, Cowboys, Titans, and Chiefs all have bye weeks this week. And let's begin. On Thursday, we have Raiders versus Broncos. Two AFC West teams going at it. You know, and with this game being in Denver, there's nothing much to say, but the Broncos should win this game. Okay, now let's do the Sunday morning game. Which is going to be played in Germany. Falcons versus Colts. The Falcons suffered their second loss of the season last week. But they'll bounce back this week. And they'll get a win against the Falcons. Now let's go this way. And let's skip this game for now, because that's a Sunday night game. So let's move on to Jaguars versus Texans. Two AFC South teams going at it. The Texans lost a close game last week against the Broncos. And also, it seems like every time that the Jaguars and the Texans play, the Texans beat them most of the time. So that's why I'm going to pick the Texans to win this game. And if they win, they stay alive in the playoff picture. Browns versus Jets. These are two of the worst teams in the NFL right now. You got the Jets sitting at 1-7, and the Browns at 2-6. Since this game is in New Jersey, I'll go with the Jets to win this game and get their second win of the season. Bills versus Dolphins. The Dolphins finally fired their GM, Chris Grier. And I think I heard that their head coach, Mike McDaniel, was going to be the head coach for the remainder of the season. And also, the Dolphins just traded away their pass rusher, Jalen Phillips, to the Eagles. So we'll see how many more games the Dolphins win this year. Because this has not been the year for them. I'll tell you that. And the Bills, they should win this game easily in Miami. And if they win, now they have the same record as the Patriots. Well, for now, that is. Ravens versus Vikings. The Ravens have won their last 2 games in a row, and I think they'll make it 3 games in a row this week. You know, I know the Vikings had an impressive win against the Lions, but you know, the Ravens, they have that sense of urgency. You know, to stay alive in the playoff for a playoff spot, maybe even for the division. Who knows? Because right now they're like 2 games behind the Steelers for first place in the AFC North. Patriots versus Bucks. These are 2 evenly matched teams, both only sitting at 2 losses each. But since this game is in Tampa, I'll give the Bucks the benefit of the doubt and say that they win. And look at that, the Bills will now take over in first place of the AFC East. Giants versus Bears. Okay, I have the Bears winning this game. You know, the Giants have a lot of injuries now. And you know, the Bears they're looking a lot better than they were last year. Last year they won like 5-12, I want to say. If they win this week, they now surpass that win total already. Saints versus Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers had an impressive win against the Packers last week in Lambeau Field at that. You know, Bryce Young didn't have the greatest day, but they still ran the ball all over the Packers. In this game, he also doesn't have to play his best, and they should still win against the Saints. Cardinals versus Seahawks. Yeah, same thing. The Cardinals have a lot of injuries too. And Seahawks, they're one of the more underrated teams in the NFL this season. In fact, they're in first place of the NFC West right now, even ahead of the Rams and the 49ers. And yeah, I think they win this game and stay in first place as well. Speaking of the NFC West, we have Rams versus 49ers. Wow, this is a hard game to predict. It really is. I'm all saying that the Rams are 3.5 point favorites. I don't know, it's just a good feeling. I'm gonna say that this will be my first upset of the week because I have 3 of them this week. This will be my first upset of the week, and I'll pick the 49ers to win this game. Lions versus Commanders. Jaden Danielson had a bad elbow injury last week. It looked pretty gruesome. And who knows if he'll play again this season. I do remember that Kurt Warner back in 2007, he played on a broken elbow because he did injure his non-throwing hand as well. You know, if the Commanders start losing a lot of games, then I don't think he'll play again. Just my opinion. But anyways, I'll pick the Lions to win this game. And that'll drop the Commanders at 3-7. So it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs this year. Okay, and for the Sunday night game, we have Steelers versus Chargers. You know, I like from what I saw from the Steelers last week when they beat the Colts. And the Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. You know what? This will be my second upset of the week. I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this game against the Chargers. And for the Monday night game, we have Eagles versus Packers. The Packers are 2.5 point favorites in this game, which I don't know how. Like, what are they thinking? Putting the Packers as 2.5 point favorites, especially when last week as 13.5 point favorites they lost to the Panthers. That's not twice that the Packers lose as double-digit point favorites. The first time it was against the Browns. Last week it was against the Panthers. You know, if the Packers keep losing those type of games, I mean, should Matt LaFleur be in a hot seat or something? Because if you want to go far into the playoffs, those are the type of games that you cannot lose. Last week they were the number 1 seed, now they're the number 4 seed. And if they lose this week, they might drop down to third place in their division. And I don't think they won this game, to be honest. I'm gonna pick the Eagles to win this game. And if they lose this week, that next game against the Giants, it's gonna be a must-win game. Because look at that, they were dropped down to the number 8 seed, which wouldn't be good enough to make the playoffs. You know, it's time that they start getting serious. And Matt LaFleur, his play calling has to be a lot better too. You cannot be going for it on 4th and 8. 4th and 8 in the red zone. You gotta take the points. And if you don't have a lot of confidence in your kicker, they bring the other guy in. Whatever his name is, I forget. You know, the guy that made the 61-yarder against the Cardinals. Well, looks like that's all the games for Week 10. Now let me know y'all's predictions. See y'all later.